How's that saying go? You never know who might be on the other end of that phone call you receive. Well, it seems that many of you still experience some creepy phone calls from time to time. That's why on today's episode of Scary Stories, we'll be reliving and retelling your true encounters. So sit back, relax, and let's answer some of those phone calls, shall we? Number 1. He claimed to be my best friend. I was going through a pretty interesting time in 2010. Apart from just starting college and being happy to be attending the university I always dreamed of, I felt as if something was missing. Sure, my parents always strived for me to focus on my studies, but part of me wanted to get into the workforce. I blame this overachieving on my older brother, who went on to become a doctor. That's why I was excited to hear that just a month after classes began, our university was going to be throwing a job fair. I'd actually heard of it from fellow friends, and they were able to secure themselves with awesome jobs. One friend got a job working as a park ranger, and another one is currently on his way to becoming a firefighter. As I was following in the steps of my brother in the medical field, I was one of the first to head to that huge auditorium in which the fair was being held. Music could be heard jamming out of big speakers, and crowds of students could be heard conversing of their bright and wonderful futures. I appreciated the warm welcome a couple of students gave me when I entered the building, as I now began looking for the medical booths, which there were a few. I thought about nursing, thus I went ahead and talked to a couple of students who were currently interning at a local hospital. They gave me all the information I needed, including a pamphlet and some business cards. I then left them my cell phone and my email. Once I left, I got stopped by a man asking if I was looking for work. He was average looking. He was dressed in a business casual outfit, had slicked back brown hair, and large glasses. Yeah, actually, I just finished talking with some of the people at the medical booth. I'm looking at becoming a nurse, I gleefully replied, being filled with excitement from the music playing over the speakers and the overall positive energy around me.
Is that so? That's incredible. I'm currently scouting for people that are interested in the medical field. Would you like to leave me your email and your cell phone?
This was where I made one of the most naive and most dumb decisions in my early adulthood, trusting a stranger with my phone number.
Awesome. Here, have a flyer. It's got a lot more information in case you're interested. Have a good afternoon.
The man then walked away to speak with some other girls. Now the flyer he had given me was questionable at best. It looked as if it was made from a template, with the only important detail being the logo for the company he apparently represented. It was called Jerry Myers Enterprises, a company that helps college students find work. Yeah, I hadn't heard of it either, which was why later that evening in my dorm room, I tried to look it up, but I got no results. Hey, have you heard of this Jerry Myers Enterprises? Some man on campus gave me this flyer saying he was recruiting people, I said to my roommate Skylar, who also had a look of confusion. I can't say I have. Are you sure you didn't just type it in incorrectly? Nah, I'm pretty sure I did. I tried a bunch of different spellings too, and I've got nothing. Confused out of our minds, both Skylar and I soon forget about the company, until a week or so later. I was in bed watching movies on my laptop when I ended up getting a text message from an unknown number.
Hey Lisa, how are you doing? It's been a while, hasn't it?
Lisa is my name, by the way.
Sorry, but I must not have your phone number. Who is this?
I texted back, thinking perhaps I had deleted one of my friend's numbers on accident.
Why do you have to be that way, Lisa? Seriously, after all this time we spent in high school, you're gonna forget your best friend? I'm sorry, but I still don't know who this is. Can't you just tell me? Just guess.
I ended up texting back with a friend's name, and the number responded back almost immediately with confirmation.
Bingo, this is Kelly. I haven't heard from you in a while, girl. I want to come over and visit you sometime.
Just for some quick info, I mentioned Kelly because that was the name of one of my best friends who I lost contact with. For months I was hoping I could hear from her again, and it seemed as if this was the case. So I thought,
Sure, I'm currently at university. That's sweet. What's your dorm room number? Maybe you can let me visit you this weekend.
I gave her the information and I left it at that. Fast forward a few nights later, it's Saturday. Kelly sends me a text message and she asks me to meet her at our university's baseball stadium.
I've got some food I brought. I was thinking, maybe we could sit in the seats and we could watch the sky above and catch up. Awesome. Do you mind if I bring my friend Skylar with me? You'll love her. She's so funny. And she's really sweet, too.
Kelly texts me back in anger by saying she wanted me to go on my own.
No, I just want it to be you and me. Please don't bring anybody else. This should be our alone time.
That raised an alarm. Kelly was always of the mentality of the more the merrier, which I reminded her of. I got a response a few minutes later, with Kelly telling me she just really wanted it to be us two. Things were growing a bit odd, so I called her wanting to hear her voice. She didn't answer, and she immediately messages me back by claiming she lost her voice. Now this was really starting to turn into quite the show, so I ended up bringing Skylar regardless. Now the baseball stadium is all the way behind the university. Out there you're really out of luck if you're trying to get someone's attention, which really made me ponder why she wanted to meet there of all places. I mean, why would she be so excited to show up to my dorm, only to change completely when I told her I lived with Skylar, and then ask me to meet her somewhere so isolated and by myself? Eventually we reached the outside of the baseball stadium, and I text her back.
I'm here, Kelly. Where are you at? I thought I told you. No other people. Just you and me.
I had enough, so I shouted out and I said, Kelly, if you really want to see me, then just come out here already. About 10 seconds later, we get a shock of a lifetime. A figure begins to approach Skylar and I from behind the ticket booth. Kelly? Is that you? The person approaching, who had a hoodie covering their face, reveals moments later they were not who they claimed to be. Remember the man I met during the job fair? The one that was part of Jerry Myers Enterprises? It was him, and worst of all, he took out a knife. Skylar and I went, nope, and we run like the wind, screaming along the way as this creep chases us. Once we were in a more lit-up part of campus, we turn around, only to see the man is long gone. Naturally, we ended up calling the campus police, and they did a search of the university, but unfortunately, they found nobody matching our description. A few weeks later, with the help of descriptions from eyewitnesses, police were able to find and arrest him a few states over, after he tried to lure some other college students, who were thankfully wise to catch on to his tricks. Edit. I contacted the real Kelly just a few nights after both Skylar and I had this strange incident over on Facebook. This happening before he was caught, by the way. After reconnecting our friendship, I explained what had happened, and she found the whole thing bizarre. Her explanation was that he must have been waiting for me to give him enough information. That way, he could pretend to be somebody that I knew. From there, who knows what his plans were. It's just crazy to think people will go out of their way to try and get you. Number 2. Wrong phone number. I've been a long-time fan of yours, and I just realized I haven't even sent you my story. Well, it's better late than never, I guess. So here it is. It was sometime in the mid-2000s when I finally got the privilege to stay home alone. My mom and dad were super protective of me, which was why they always hired a babysitter. At 14, however, even they realized I wasn't a little kid anymore, so they allowed me to be home alone. For context, we lived in an average middle American town where it's very unheard of to hear of any crime or break-ins. It's funny, because for the longest time I always considered those sorts of stories as just a strategy from parents to keep their kids from misbehaving. I would be in for quite the shocker, however. It was a summer afternoon in the middle of July, and I'd spent most of that hot and humid day playing video games in my cool, air-conditioned room. I recall collecting Shine Sprites and Super Mario Sunshine and drinking sweet, delicious lemonade out of my favorite cup and enjoying a typical teenager's paradise. At some point in my gaming session, I recall hearing the phone ring. I usually let it go to voicemail, and this was no other excuse. However, a couple of minutes later, the phone begins to ring again, and then again, and you guessed it, again. Slightly annoyed to have to leave my room, I began thinking perhaps my mom or my dad were trying to get into contact with me. So, I get up, and I'm instantly met with the hot, warm air of the living room. Since the AC we owned was one of those you install in the windows, the rest of the house was like an oven. Anyways, I went ahead and answered, and I'm met with a strange man's voice.
Hello? Who am I speaking with?
Dude, hurry up and open the door. I want my money.
Your guess is as good as mine. What money? And why was I going to open the door for a stranger?
I'm so sorry, but I don't know what you're talking about. Who is this?
Don't play dumb. Open the door, or I'll break it down and kill you.
I stood there in bewilderment, completely shocked and filled with chills as to what the man had just stated. However, as I could hear no knocking at my front door, I once again state he's got the wrong house.
Look, I don't know who you are, but I promise you, I have no money, and you've got the wrong house.
Okay, you asked for it.
It then sounds as if the man puts his cell phone in his pocket, which then gets followed immediately after by the sound of loud pops. It didn't take me long to realize those pops weren't firecrackers. In actuality, it was the sound from a gun. Along with the sound of glass shattering, the man soon puts the phone up to his ear, and he says,
Where are you hiding? I better not find you hiding, or you're dead.
I couldn't take it anymore, so I immediately hung up, and I tried my best to take in what I had just heard. Was this a prank? No, it sounded way too real for it to be one. Either way, I wasn't sure who to call or what to even begin describing. Thus, I called my parents. They suggested I call police, which I did only a few minutes after. That phone number never called my house again, and as far as I learned, they were able to trace the phone call all the way from Alaska, which, by the way, I was living in Oklahoma at the time. I never did find out if they caught the creepy guy who called me, nor whether or not the creepy dude found the person he was after, but I spent a couple of weeks watching the news for any stories that matched what I had heard. Unfortunately, there is nothing. So, it remains a mystery, even to this day. Hey there, I hope you're enjoying the video so far. Before we continue, let's take this opportunity to thank my channel members, Robbie, Bo, Kim, Hi There, and Spunky the Nutcase. If you'd like to help support what I do here and get a shout out, then check out the channel memberships option. It's right next to where it says subscribe. Anyways, let's continue. Number 3. Open the door. For many months, I've been trying to find someone who has had a similar experience, but I've been met with empty hands. Perhaps by sharing it with the creepy fox and his friends, somebody might come forward and share their story. It was 2011 in suburban North Dakota, and I was living with my girlfriend at the time in our grandparents' old home, which was given to me. On one weekend night at about 2 a.m., my girlfriend's cell phone began to ring. It turned out to be an unknown caller with an area code we didn't recognize. We ignored it at first, but after the second call, she went ahead and answered.
Hello? Who's calling this late? If you're trying to sell some products, we're not interested.
My girlfriend said in her grumpy voice, while I chuckled under my breath over her frustration.
Hi, sweetie, it's Mommy. Could you please open the door?
My girlfriend puts her phone on mute and then clicks the speaker button so I could hear who was calling.
Sweetie, hello? Are you there? Please, it's really cold out here. I need your help.
Just so you get an understanding, the best way I could describe the voice was as if a dude was doing his best impersonation to sound like a girl. Really creepy, which was why I took over for my girlfriend.
Hello? Mama Anderson? It's Aaron. Could you please explain to me what you're doing over 100 miles from your home, standing outside in the cold?
The voice on the other end goes silent for a solid 15 seconds, as my girlfriend and I are just staring at each other like, seriously?
Hurry up. I need your help. I need to talk to you inside.
By this point, I could tell the person on the other end was getting frustrated. So, I took the phone from my girlfriend, and then I grabbed my revolver from the nightstand and head to the front living room to peek outside. Sure enough, I could see somebody in all dark clothing talking over the phone.
If that's you outside, you better get to stepping, because in about 5 seconds, I'm going to drop you.
I then opened my window and shouted in the most intimidating voice I could muster, "Get out of here. You're not my girlfriend's mother."
Sorry, I guess I must have got the wrong number.
The voice sounded more masculine and old, and I got chills as he runs into a nearby vehicle and drives away. To this day, we have no clue who the man was or how he had gotten my girlfriend's number. Part of us sort of has an idea of his identity. At the time, my girlfriend was going to Starbucks to do some video editing on her laptop. She had even put up a flyer on one of their community bulletin boards regarding hiring a video editor, which she did as a side hustle. Of course, some people took the little slips of paper that had her number and email address on it, and she got some clients. She wants to believe it could have been this old man who had been stalking her for quite some time. It's possible since the voice did sound old, but we'll never know exactly for sure. As my girlfriend says, she has never seen him again. Number 4. I'm standing outside your window. At the time this took place, around 2013, 2014, I was living in Guerrero, Mexico with my mom. We lived in a pretty shady neighborhood that saw gangsters roaming around and shots being fired late into the evening. For the most part, as long as you stayed within city limits and you avoided contact with suspicious people, you were safe. That still didn't provide any comfort when you walked by a building and see a bunch of bullet holes that weren't there the previous day. Now I know what you might be asking yourself. Why in the world would you be living in such a dangerous location? It's because we didn't have much money, and this was the only place we could afford. We were able to move out a year after this incident took place, which I will say, makes life a lot less stressful. But again, I want to focus on this one creepy event. It was one evening in the spring when both my mom and I were making tamales for some of our clients, which, side note, we bake and cook food for a living. As I head to the refrigerator to grab some butter, I noticed we were all out. Mother told me she would head to the grocery store to go and pick some up. Meanwhile, I would get started on cooking the chicken. Fast forward about 10 minutes since my mom left. The phone started to ring. I was kind of annoyed because for the past week or so, we had been getting a bunch of telemarketers trying to sell their products. It had to be at least 9 out of every 10 calls. I was met with a typical, "Hey, would you be interested in this?" I assumed it was the same deal, so I don't answer. A minute later, the phone rings again, and after the 4th ring, they hang up. This happens 2 more times, and I get fed up, so I promised myself I would answer on the next call. Just like clockwork, the phone rings 30 seconds later, and I answered it immediately. I asked who the caller was, but I got no answer. All I could hear was heavy breathing and noises from the street, such as cars passing by and people conversing in the distance. I just assumed it was a wrong number, and I get back to cooking. Things then went quiet for approximately 5 minutes, and I started to wonder what was taking my mother so long. Sure, it was a bit of a walk, but by now she should have gotten here. I called her, and she told me she was about 10 minutes away, going further to say she got caught talking to a friend of hers who she hadn't seen in over a year. A minute later, the landline rings yet again, and I answer in frustration.
Can you stop calling? If you're not going to leave a message or even say anything, then knock it off.
Look outside, darling. I'm standing by the window. You want to let me in, Mamacita? We could have some fun without your parents being home.
Okay, what in the actual you-know-what is happening? I got the chills when standing at the window was a man in a hoodie and bandana over the lower part of his face. I screamed and I grabbed my kitchen knife, thinking this man was about to break in. However, he just stood there and spoke to me with a sing-songy type voice before he tried to jingle open the back door. He was unsuccessful, thus he just stared at me for another 10 or so seconds before something incredible happens. I heard somebody yell at him, and he books it like a scared cat. I quickly ran over to the front of the house to see who might have yelled at him, and it was a police officer. Surprising considering they're almost of no help here. I don't know what happened after that night, because he never showed up to my house again, nor did he ever call. Both my mom and I have no clue how he got her phone number, but in today's modern age, it can't be too difficult, which is a very creepy thought. Number 5. Be careful with your spare keys. I moved in with a good friend of mine around 2007 as a way to become self-efficient. I tired of the days of being told by my dad what time I had to be home, even though he knew very darn well I worked late hours. It's like he couldn't trust me with anything. Looking back, I think it's because he's just really protective, since I'm his only daughter. But I digress. My friend, who we're going to call Natalie, was in the process of getting a new job, which was why the house phone was constantly ringing during the daytime. If Natalie didn't answer, she instructed me just to let it go to voicemail, and she would reply to it later. That rule stood in effect for the most part, but I would answer on occasion, since my parents would call to check up on me as well. One morning was like none other. I got up still in my pajamas, a messy bedhead, and I start to prepare some breakfast. It usually consisted of 2 hard-boiled eggs and 2 pieces of wheat toast with some jam. Anyways, as I stood there watching the news on a little Sony television, the phone began to ring. I let it go to voicemail, and I continued through my daily chores. At lunch, I finally checked the message, and I heard something quite creepy.
Hey there, Natalie. It's John. So, you got a girlfriend now? You turned on me, huh? I will say, nice job getting a blonde. How about this? I won't kill you for breaking up with me, as long as you two give me 30 minutes of your time in the bedroom.
If you're lost, that makes 2 of us. I had no clue who this John person was, until I called Natalie to inform her of the disturbing message. Natalie advises me that John was one of her ex-boyfriends she had broken up with due to him becoming violent. It had actually gotten so terrible that she had to contact authorities once because he almost attacked her with a knife while he was drunk. Thank goodness she thought about running to her neighbor's house, but that was over a year ago. I will say, Natalie was pretty naive not to press any charges, nor get a restraining order put against him. She claimed he had apologized profusely and that they ended on okay terms. If that was the situation, why did he call her back almost a year later? Was he really stalking her? And how did he know about me? Regardless, we contacted the police station, and they advised us they would investigate the situation. In the meantime, we were to report back with any information of sightings or phone calls. Fast forward a few nights later, it was a girls' night at our place, and we had 2 other friends spending the night. We will call them Lacey and Rachel. We'd been watching movies in the living room when we ran out of popcorn. I offered to go make some more, while Natalie went to refill the cups of soda. All of a sudden, the apartment phone began to ring, and I reluctantly answered.
Hello? Who is this?
No lie. On the other end was the same voice from the voicemail whispering to me.
Hey, is this the girl living with Natalie? What are you 2 doing at the moment? You wouldn't mind if I came to say hello, would you?
Before I even had a chance to say anything, Lacey and Rachel run over to us screaming, saying there was a man currently in the living room with a knife. We freaked out when moments later this John guy walks into the kitchen. Our adrenaline pumped so fast when we started to see him laugh like a lunatic.
So there's 4 of you? This is gonna be even better.
This dude was easily 6'4", 250 to 270 pounds. Meanwhile, the tallest of our group was 5'4", about 115 pounds. Anyways, he begins to walk over to our group when Natalie pulls out a fast one. She had her purse just a few inches from her on the countertop, where inside she had her taser. Safe to say, he got quite the shock of a lifetime. Pun fully intended. She fires and this dude drops to the ground, screaming and yelling. We booked it out of the apartment, where we saw a couple of families begin to walk outside, confused with the ruckus they were hearing. Well, thankfully we contacted authorities, and they were able to arrest John. For those wondering, one of her keys had gone missing just a week or 2 before these crazy events. We believe John must have found that key, which was buried inside of the plant we keep next to our front door, and then used it to just seemingly make his way in. Why he waited so long to do so, who knows? But we made sure not to procrastinate with the locks. We had them changed and no longer kept any spare keys outside. If we were locked out, we had to wait for the other to get home, even if that meant waiting for hours inside of our cars. Number 6. Phone Stalker from Japan. Hey Creepy Fox, big fan of yours from Japan. I saw your post over on Instagram about you looking for a creepy phone call story, and I have one you might be interested in. It is sort of short, but here it is nonetheless. This happened in the mid to late 2000s, after I'd gotten my first cell phone at 17 years old. The call started one day out of the blue when I received a call from an unknown number. I, being the naive teenager I was, went ahead and answered, and I was met with heavy breathing. This was followed shortly after by the voice of a male saying weird things such as how pretty I looked, and even describing my school uniform and backpack. Bear in mind, I was with my friends at an outdoor food market when I got the call, so of course, we all looked around to see if we saw any suspicious individuals talking over their cell phone. Easier said than done, as there had to be hundreds of people going about their typical lives. So, myself and my group of friends wrote this down as just a classmate playing a prank, so I blocked the number, forgetting about it for a couple of days. Later that week, while I was writing up an essay for my literature class, I got a phone call from another unknown number. This time I didn't answer it, so I continued with my writing. A minute or 2 later, however, the phone vibrated, indicating a notification. So I grabbed my cell phone to see I had a message in my voicemail inbox, and it said something like this.
Hey, how come you blocked my number? I don't very much appreciate girls who play hard to get. I'll kill you for that, and I won't even be creative about it either.
I was freaked out, so immediately I showed the voicemail to my parents. We then contacted the police, and they ended up tapping my phone, eventually catching the man. Unfortunately, they never let us know who it was. I don't know how that process works, but apparently the police couldn't say anything other than we shouldn't worry about getting calls from that man ever again. Edit. Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know how he got my number. Before we get to the final story, I just wanted to go ahead and give you all a quick reminder. If you're ever looking for extra content, whether it be art, previews, or sneak peeks, then make sure to follow me over on my Instagram, @TheCreepyFoxOfficial. Thank you. I'll see you there. But for now, let's get on to our final entry. Number 7. Never trust online strangers. In 2011, when I was 22 years old, I was looking for a part-time job that didn't mess up my school schedule. This semester, I decided to take it a bit easy. I downgraded from 6 classes only to 4, still keeping my full-time status. Anyways, I tried applying for some of the restaurants in the food court, but I didn't call them back because a friend of mine had told me about babysitting. Up to that point, I hadn't really bothered to look into it. I mean, it made sense. Most babysitters tend to enjoy their work, as it let them choose their own schedules. If you were able to work with a family that needed you when you were available, it was a match. Therefore, my friend helped me set up a post for friends only on Facebook, and I waited a couple of days to see if I got any clicks. While most of my friends and family liked the post, nobody really asked for a babysitter. After a week or so, I started to think it was best off I got a job elsewhere. But that was until one day, I received a call.
Hello, is this Deanna? I'm calling because I saw your babysitting ad. If you have some time, I'd like to discuss your services.
This man said in a low and quiet voice. I'm not sure why, but for whatever reason, his tone of voice was giving me a bunch of anxiety. I blamed it on the fact I was talking to a stranger. So to begin, I asked him where exactly he had seen the ad.
It was just on Facebook the other day, and I saw somebody sharing it.
Dumb me not knowing how terrible of an idea it was to put my email and phone number on Facebook, continued with the conversation.
Awesome. So, who will I be looking after? And what days will you need me available? At the moment, I'm available Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights. Those work the best for me.
Those days work. You would be looking after my son. He's only 5. He shouldn't cause you too many issues.
So far, the conversation was innocent as we continued to lay out more details. But then he started to ask some pretty weird questions.
Just between you and me, do you have a boyfriend? I'm only asking because we had an issue with another girl. She was constantly bringing her boyfriend over to my place when she was babysitting, and my son didn't appreciate it.
I did find the personal question a bit off-putting, but I told him I was seeing someone, and then his tone changes.
Oh, well, just make sure not to bring him, whatever you do. I don't want any other guys at my house. Also, do you mind if I ask what you look like? It's just so my son can look forward to seeing you.
It's like what? Did he want a picture of me or something? Seriously. Anyways, the way he said that along with the other questions really made me feel as if he was calling for other purposes. I asked him if it was really necessary to have all these details. I almost considered hanging up the call, but when he offered me $25 an hour, I thought I hit the jackpot. See, my friend was only making $15, so this had to be some really rich family. Again, how naive I was. I agreed to have him drop his son off at my place, and the date was set. Fast forward to the night in question. I was now regretting giving this complete stranger my address, but I kept telling myself I was just being overly paranoid. Still, I had my boyfriend along with his brother keeping me company just because I was getting bad vibes from the man who had called. At around 6 p.m., I texted him and I asked if he was on his way. He told me he was right around the corner and he would be joining me shortly. With that, we waited next to the window and we watched in anticipation as not too long after, a Toyota Tacoma with its windows tinted pulls into our driveway.
I'm here. Can you come outside and help me with my son?
He texted while we waited for any signs of movement.
I'm actually in the restroom at the moment. Mind meeting me at the front door?
No, that's okay. I'll wait for you inside the car.
This was starting to become quite the predicament, so both my boyfriend and his brother decided to walk outside and meet the man. They didn't get a chance to do so, because just as quickly as the vehicle arrived, it drives away, never to be seen again. Later that night, he called me and he asked why I would have men at my house. I followed by telling him they were my 2 older brothers, to which he called me out on the lie before cursing me out. I in turn blocked him, and I never heard from him again. Also, I removed my post and I asked all of my family and friends who they had shared it with, as I made it for friends only. One friend admitted to sharing it to everyone, which explained how some random stranger came into contact with me. I had to change my number and my email, and I even moved a few cities away, all because of a dumb mistake.